Culture.
And what about that cat that she used? What about that?
It's magic.
It's
Yeah, and
magic.
what does
Um,
it do? Who does it call when you put it on?
The
winged monkeys.
winged monkey.
Winged monkeys. How many times can you call them? The winged
Great.
3.
three
Um,
times.
I
And
have
so,
a question.
go ahead.
Is Huck gonna do the Wizard of Oz with us?
Are you gonna stay and listen, Huck?
Maybe halfway.
I think he can be half. Then Mrs. Mack has stuff for him to do.
Oh.
But guess what I get to do with Huck and Bo during break? What do you
What?
think? I'm gonna take him out on the playground.
That's what I was gonna say. Oh man, I wish I were there
I
right
know.
now.
I wish you were too.
I'd be
Luckily,
playing on
we
the
get to
monkey
be there on
bars.
Wednesday. Luckily, Monday and Tuesday kids get to be there on Wednesday to check it out.
That's
Right?
right, Heath. Can you just not wait? Isn't it so exciting? Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to read the last few lines so we remember exactly where we were at. Then the next chapter is called The Rescue. So, after picking out the silver shoe, which was all that was left of the old witch, she cleaned and dried it with a cloth and put it on her foot again. Then, being at last free to do as she chose, she ran out to the courtyard to tell the lion that the wicked witch of the west had come to an end and that they were no longer prisoners in a strange land. The next chapter is called The Rescue. I'm old, I'm 60. I have a lot of practice. The Cowardly Lion was much pleased to hear that the Wicked Witch had been melted by a bucket of water, and Dorothy at once unlocked the gate of his prison and set him free. They went in together to the castle, where Dorothy's first act was to call all the Winkies together and tell them that they were no longer slaves. Yay, rejoice! There was great rejoicing among the yellow Winkies, for they had been made to work hard during many years for the Wicked Witch, who had always treated them with great cruelty. They kept this day as a holiday, then and ever after, and spent the time in feasting and dancing. If our friends, the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman, were only here with us, said the Lion, I should be quite happy. But remember, are they destroyed? The wood, yes, that's so sad. Don't you suppose we could rescue them? Asked the girl anxiously. We can try, answered the lion. So they called the yellow Winkies and asked them if they would help rescue their friends. And the Winkies said that they would be delighted to do all in their power, for Dorothy had set them free from bondage. So she chose a number of Winkies who looked as if they knew the most, and they all started right away. They traveled that day and part of the next day until they came to the rocky plain where the Tin Woodman lay, all battered and bent. His axe was near him, but the blade was rusted and the handle broken off short. The Winkies lifted him tenderly in their arms and carried him back to the yellow castle again. Dorothy, shedding a few tears by the way at the sad plight of her old friend, and the lion looked sober and sorry. When they reached the castle, Dorothy said to the Winkies, are any of your people tinsmiths? Oh, yes. Some of them are very good tinsmiths, they told her. Then bring them to me, she said. And when the tinsmiths came, bringing with them all their tools and baskets, she inquired, can you straighten out the dents in the Tin Woodman and bend him back into shape again and solder him together where he is broken? The tinsmiths looked at the woodman carefully and then answered that they thought that they could mend him so he would be as good as ever. Whoa. So they set to work in one of the big yellow rooms of the castle and worked for 3 days and 4 nights, hammering and twisting and bending and soldering and polishing and pounding at the legs, the body, and the head of the Tin Woodman until at last he was straightened out into his old form and his joints worked as well as ever. To be sure, there were several patches on him, but the tinsmiths did a good job. And as the woodman was not a vain man, he did not mind the patches at all. And here's a picture of them working to help. There's the Tin Woodman. Do you see him? They're working on him.
Are they gonna stab him with that thing?
No, they're helping him. He's made of tin. That's so exciting. When at last he walked into Dorothy's room and thanked her for rescuing him, he was so pleased that he wept tears of joy, and Dorothy had to wipe every tear carefully from his face with her apron so his joints would not be rusted. At the same time, her own tears fell thick and fast at the joy of meeting her old friend again, and these tears did not need to be wiped away. As for the lion, he wiped his eyes so often with the tip of his tail that it became quite wet, and he was obligated to go out to the courtyard and hold it in the sun until it got dry. They were so happy that they cried for joy. Isn't that amazing? The Tin Woodman's alive again. We thought he wasn't. I know. If we only had the Scarecrow with us again, said the Tin Woodman, when Dorothy had finished telling him everything that had happened, I should be quite happy. We must try to find him, said the girl. So she called the Winkies to help her, and they walked all that day and part of the next day until they came to the tall tree in the branches of which the winged monkeys had tossed the Scarecrow's clothes. It was a very tall tree, and the trunk was so smooth that no one could climb it. But the woodman said at once, I'll chop it down, and then we'll get the Scarecrow's clothes. Now, while the tinsmiths had been at work mending the woodman himself, another of the Winkies, who was a goldsmith, had made an axe handle of solid gold and fitted it to the woodman's axe instead of the old broken handle. A gold handle, woo-hoo. Others polished the blade until all the rust was removed and glistened like burnished silver. As soon as he had spoken, the Tin Woodman began to chop, and in short time the tree fell over with a crash. When the Scarecrow's clothes fell out of the branches and rolled off onto the ground, Dorothy picked them up and had the Winkies carry them back to the castle, where they were stuffed with nice clean straw. And behold, here was the Scarecrow, as good as ever, thanking them over and over again for saving him. Now that they had been reunited, Dorothy and her friends spent a few happy days at the Yellow Castle, where they found everything they had needed to make them comfortable. But one day, the thought of Auntie Em, one day the girl thought of Auntie Em and said, "Oh, we must go back to Oz and claim his promise." Now, if you were Dorothy, would you want to go back? I don't know. Would you want to go back and see Auntie Em? But if it was your mom, you would want to go, right? And that's how Dorothy thinks of Auntie Em. But don't you hate that she's might leave the Scarecrow on everybody? Oh, I hate that. So sad. Yes, said the Woodman, at last I shall get my heart. And I shall get my brains, said the Scarecrow joyfully. And I shall get my courage, said the Lion thoughtfully. But you need a spoon, right? So I'll get you in there. And I shall get back to Kansas, cried Dorothy, clapping her hands. Look in there in the napkin for a spoon. Sorry, guys.
What is it?
And I shall get my courage, said the Lion, and I shall get back to Kansas, cried Dorothy, clapping her hands. Oh, let us start for the Emerald City tomorrow.
Yeah.
This they decided to do. The next day, they called the Winkies together and they bade them goodbye. The Winkies were sorry. The Winkies were sorry to have them go, and they had grown so fond of the Tin Woodman. No, don't. Sorry. Of the Tin Woodman that they begged him to stay and rule over them and the yellow land of the west. Oh, so the Tin Woodman's gonna stay and be the leader of the Winkies. What do you think of that, you guys? Yeah, Chloe's clapping. That's a good one. Finding they were determined to go, the Winkies gave Toto and Lion each a golden collar. And to Dorothy, they presented a beautiful bracelet studded with diamonds. Beautiful bracelet studded with diamonds. And to the Scarecrow, they gave a gold-headed walking stick to keep him from stumbling. And to the Tin Woodman, they offered a silver oil can inlaid with gold and set with precious jewels. Every one of the travelers made the Winkies a pretty speech in return, and all shook hands with them until their arms ached. Dorothy went to the witch's cupboard to fill the basket with good food for the journey, and there she saw, what did she see?
The golden cap.
The golden cap.
Golden cap. But she saw that it was pretty. Oh, let's see. She tried it on her own head and found that it fitted her exactly. She did not know anything about the magic of the golden cap, but she saw that it was pretty. So she made up her mind to wear it and carry her sunbonnet in her basket. Then, being prepared for the journey, they all started for the Emerald City, and the Winkies gave them 3 cheers and many good wishes to carry with them. So I'm going to see. So the Tin Woodman's going, but he's going to come back and be their leader after he gets his heart. There they are.
Look what I draw.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful
Wizard of Oz.
That's the Toda. Oh, that's
this one ended kind of early. I'll go on with the next one because it's kind of short. The next chapter is called The Winged Monkeys. You will remember there was no road, not even a pathway between the castle of the Wicked Witch and the Emerald City. How did they get there? Who remembers? How did they get there in the first place?
Just travel west.
No. What did the witch do? What was her last golden cap wish?
for the winged monkeys to carry them over.
Right. The winged monkeys carried them over because there was no way to get them there. So who can predict what's going to happen?
Dorothy might accidentally I don't know, like drop the cap might fall off her head and drop, and then the winged monkeys might think that she summoned them.
Let's see. Let's find out. Who agrees with Riley's prediction? Give me a thumbs up if you agree with Riley's prediction. I don't see any thumbs up. Oh, I don't know. I see Sophie has a thumbs up and Will does.
And Everly.
What do you think, Hannah?
And Ellie did a double thumbs up.
Okay, you saw. Good. Okay. You will remember there was no road, but not even a pathway between the castle of the Wicked Witch and the Emerald City. When the 4 travelers went in search of the witch, she had seen them coming, and so she sent the winged monkeys to bring them to her. It was much harder to find their way back through the big fields of buttercups and bright daisies than it was being carried. They knew, of course, they must go straight east toward the rising sun, and they started off in the right way. But at noon, when the sun was over their heads, they did not know which was east and which was west. And that was the reason they were lost in the great fields. They kept on walking, however, and at night the moon came out and shone brightly. So they lay down among the sweet-smelling scarlet flowers and slept soundly until morning. But all but the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman. The next morning, the sun was behind a cloud, but they started on as if they were quite sure if they were quite sure which way they were going. If we could walk far enough, said Dorothy, we shall sometime come to some place, I am sure. But day by day passed away, and they still saw nothing before them but scarlet fields. The Scarecrow began to grumble a bit. We have surely lost our way, he said, and unless we find it again in time to reach the Emerald City, I shall never get my brains. Nor I my heart, declared the Tin Woodman. It seems to me I can scarcely wait till I get to Oz, and you must admit this is a very long journey. You see, said the Cowardly Lion with a whimper, I haven't the courage to keep tramping forever without getting anywhere at all. Then Dorothy lost heart. She sat down on the grass and looked at her companions, and they sat down and looked at her, and Toto found that for the first time in his life, he was too tired to chase a butterfly that flew past his head. So he put out his tongue and panted and looked at Dorothy as if to ask what they should do next. Suppose we call the field mice, she suggested. They could probably tell us the way to the Emerald City.
Good idea.
To be sure they could, cried the Scarecrow. Yep, they need help, don't they? Why didn't we think of that before? Dorothy blew the little whistle she had been carrying around her neck since the Queen of the Mice had given it to her. In a few minutes, they heard the pattering of tiny feet, and many of the small gray mice came running up to her. Among them was the Queen herself, who asked in a squeaky voice, "What can I do for my friends?" We have lost our way, said Dorothy. Can you tell us where is the Emerald City? Certainly, answered the Queen, but it is a great way off, for you have had it at your backs all this time. Then she noticed Dorothy's golden cap. Can you shut that? Then she noticed Dorothy's golden cap and said, why don't you use the magic of the cap and call the winged monkeys to you? They will carry you to the city of Oz in less than an hour. I didn't know that there was magic in the cap, Dorothy said in surprise. How do I use it? It is written inside the golden cap, replied the Queen of the Mice. But if you are going to call the winged monkeys, we must run away, for they are full of mischief and think it is fun to harass us. Won't they hurt me? Asked the girl anxiously. Oh no, they must obey the wearer of the cap. Goodbye. And she scampered out of sight with all the other mice hurrying around her. Dorothy looked inside the golden cap and saw some words written upon the lining. These, she thought, must be the magic. So she read the directions carefully and put the cap upon her head. Ippy pippy cacky, she said, standing on her left foot. What did you say? Asked the Scarecrow, who did not know what she was doing. Hilo, holo, hello, Dorothy went on, standing this time on her right foot. Hello, replied the Tin Woodman calmly. Zizzy, zuzzy, zick, said Dorothy, who was now standing on both feet. This ended the saying of the magic, and they heard a great chattering and flapping of wings as the band of winged monkeys flew up to them. The king bowed low before Dorothy and asked, "What is your command?" We wish to go to the Emerald City, said the child, and we have lost our way. We will carry you, replied the king. And no sooner had she spoken than two monkeys caught Dorothy in their arms and flew away with her. And I have a picture of that. Look at, she's got the golden cap on.
That's weird.
She looks happy. Does she have her silver shoes on? Yep.
That cap looks weird. Oh, and the monkeys, they look like a king. They look like a king and and a royal guard monkey.
They do kind of.
The monkeys look like a soldier.
They look
Uh-huh.
like royal people.
It was-
And kill dragons.
Hey, buddy.
They look like skeletons.
Hi.
Hi, buddy.
Say hi, Heath.
Hi. I can't see him.
He's somewhere in there. Okay, let me keep going. Okay. Others took the scarecrow and the woodman and the lion, and one little monkey seized Toto and flew after them, although the dog tried to bite him. The scarecrow and the tin woodman were rather frightened at first, for they remembered how badly the winged monkeys had treated them before. But they saw that no harm was intended, so they rode through the air quite cheerfully and had a fine time looking at the pretty gardens and woods below them. Dorothy found herself riding easily between two of the biggest monkeys. One of them was the king himself. You were right about that, Heath. One of them was the king that's carrying Dorothy. They had made a chair of their hands and were careful not to hurt her. Why do you have to obey the magic of the golden cap? She asked. That is a long story, answered the king with a laugh. But as we have a long journey before us, I will pass the time by telling you about it, if you wish. I shall be glad to hear it. Once, began the leader, we were a free people living happily in the great forest, flying from tree to tree, eating nuts and fruits, and doing just as we pleased without calling anybody master. Perhaps some of us were rather too full of mischief at times, flying down to pull the tails of animals that had no wings, chasing birds and throwing nuts at the people who walked in the forest. But we were careless and happy and full of fun and enjoyed every minute of the day. This was many years ago, long before Oz came out of the clouds to rule over the land. There lived here then, away at the north, a beautiful princess who was also a powerful sorceress.
Miss Childs,
What?
look at the picture I drew. That's Dorothy and the two winged monkeys.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, do that, Bo. Okay. Okay, sorry. But this was years ago before, okay. There was a beautiful princess who was also a powerful sorceress. All her magic was used to help the people, and she was never known to hurt anyone who was good. Her name was Gaylette. Shh, guys, Gaylette. And she lived in a handsome palace built from great blocks of ruby. Everyone loved her, but her greatest sorrow was that she could find no one to love in return, since all the men were too, this is not right, were too dumb and unattractive to mate with one so beautiful and wise. At last, however, she found a boy who was handsome and manly and wise beyond his years. Gaylette made up her mind that when he grew to be a man, she would make him her husband. So she took him to her ruby palace and used all her magic powers to make him strong and good and as lovely as any woman could wish. When he grew to be a man, Kulala, as he was called, was said to be the best and wisest man in all the land. While he was so great that Gaylette loved him dearly and hastened to make everything ready for their wedding. My grandfather was at the time the king of the winged monkeys, which lived in the forest near Gaylette's palace, and the old fellow loved a joke better than a good dinner. One day, just before the wedding, my grandfather was flying out with the band when he saw Kulala walking beside the river. He was dressed in a rich costume of pink silk and purple velvet, and my grandfather thought he would see what he could do. At his word, the band flew down and seized Kulala, carried him in their arms until they were over the middle of the river, and then they dropped him into the water. Swim out, my fine fellow, and see if the water has spotted your clothes. Kulala was much too wise not to swim. and he was not in the least spoiled by all his good fortune. He laughed when he came to the top of the water and swam onto the shore. But when Gaylette came running out to see him, she found that the river had ruined his clothes. The princess was angry, and she knew, of course, who did it. So she had all the winged monkeys brought to her and said that she said at first that their wings should be tied and that they should be treated as they dropped into the river. But my grandfather pleaded hard, for he knew the monkeys would drown in the river if their wings were tied. And Kulala said a kind word for them also. So Gaylette finally spared them on the condition that the winged monkeys should forevermore do 3 times the bidding of the owner of the golden cap. This cap had been made for a wedding present to Kulala. Okay, this is kind of a boring story, don't you guys think? Is it boring? I'm going to go through it. And what became of them, asked Dorothy. Kulala, being the first owner of the golden cap, replied the monkey. He was first to lay his wishes upon us. As his bride could not bear the sight of us, he called us all to him in the forest after he was married to her, and ordered us always to keep where she could never again set eyes on winged monkeys, which is we were glad to do, for we were all afraid of her. This was all we could ever do. This was all we ever had to do when the golden cap fell into the hands of the until the golden cap fell into the hands of the wicked witch, who made us enslave the Winkies and then drive Oz himself out of the land of the West. Now the golden cap is yours, and 3 times you have the right to lay wishes upon us. As the Monkey King finished his story, Dorothy looked down and saw the green, shining walls of the Emerald City before them. That's good, because that was a long story and kind of boring, don't you think?
Yeah.
She wondered at the rapid flight of the monkeys, but she was glad that the journey was over. The strange creatures set the travelers down carefully before the gate of the city, and the king bowed low to Dorothy and then flew swiftly away, followed by his band. That was a good ride, said the little girl. Yes, and a quick way out of our troubles, replied the lion. How lucky it was you brought away the wonderful golden cap. There's Dorothy. Oh, that was a long chapter. Okay, the next chapter we'll read on Wednesday when you get here.
Miss Childs, you can't blame the winged monkeys for having such a long story to read. They told you it was going to be long.
You're right, Riley, and it was, wasn't it?
You said it was a short chapter.
I thought, but that story was just a long story. God.
Okay.
Okay, so I will finish reading it to you guys on Wednesday. The next chapter is called The Discovery of Oz the Terrible.
Bring back snack. Recess snack.
Bring back snack
Recess
recess.
snack.
Bring back snack recess.
I remember
What?
I remember this next chapter. They realized what Oz actually is. I've read it. I remember
Miss
it ever
Childs,
since
this
the
is her,
beginning
Chloe.
of us starting.
Yes. What, Chloe? Yes, dear.
Why did you say bring back snack recess?
Bring back recess snack.
Bring back recess snack.
Mrs. Childs, all the older kids have to go to school now again because you read such a long chapter. It's 10. You have to go to school. I'm sorry.
10 a.m. There you go.
Go to school, everyone. You didn't even get a break.
Okay. Bye.